For decades, world leaders have struggled to reduce carbon emissions. The result is a vast and complicated system in which pollution has become a commodity. And the carbon credits have become part of the financial market. To buy and sell the credits, one must be registered as a carbon trader.
Was it a good business?
In the early days, it was a good business. I could make roughly 50,000 euros in 5 minutes.
Also, the criminals saw opportunities in carbon credits.
Well, we saw organized crime moving into this market to carry out sophisticated online attacks of VAT fraud, culminating, we think, in losses of around 5 billion euros a year.
The market for carbon credits was created to curb global warming. But carbon emissions have never been higher in the history of mankind.
Det europæiske kvotemarked er de facto kollapset. Og det er det, fordi prisen er så langt nede, så det betyder ingenting for CO2-udslippet, om den bevæger sig lidt op eller ned.
Connie Hedegaard har i dag tabt en vigtig klimaafstemning i EU-parlamentet.
Forslaget om at trække 900 millioner CO2-kvoter ud af handelen er for kort tid siden blevet forkastet.
EU's eget kvotemarked. Det har kæmpe problemer. Det er der ingen grund til at lægge skjul på. Priserne er for lave.
Connie Hedegaard ville hæve prisen for virksomheders CO2-forurening. Den pris er nemlig faldet fra de tiltænkte 30 euro per ton til nu omkring 4 euro per ton.
De eneste, der har en rigtig interesse i kvotehandelssystemet i dag, det er finansmarkederne.
It's a very large business, but I think you have to realize that a lot of people, a lot of financial organizations wouldn't have come into this market unless there was profit to be made. And in that, some crooks were taking advantage of that fact.
In 2005, the first carbon credit went on sale in Europe. One carbon credit is equivalent to 1 ton of carbon, or the volume of 1 hot air balloon.
Could I invite everybody, good morning, to take his or her seat so that we can start...
Kyoto, Japan, 1997. Here, world leaders met to sign what would be known as the Kyoto Protocol. But even before the summit, there was conflict over the issue of global warming. A few months earlier, a new bill had been introduced in the US Congress. The bill prevented the US delegation from signing an agreement limiting emissions of greenhouse gases if this could harm the US economy. The bill was known as Byrd-Hagel and was unanimously approved. Still, the US delegation went to Kyoto.
Mr. President, this makes no sense. No sense at all.
The environmental commissioner in the EU, Ritt Bjerregaard, negotiated for the EU.
Det var klart på forhånd, at der var store problemer med amerikanerne. Så det vi gik og spekulerede på i Kyoto, det var, om der ville komme et ændret signal fra dem.
In the years leading up to the summit in Kyoto, the EU had worked on a proposal that would tax greenhouse gas emissions to motivate polluters to reduce their carbon emissions.
Jørgen Henningsen, det var dig, som oprindeligt udarbejdede forslaget om et skattebaseret kvotesystem for EU-kommissionen.
Ja, det var i begyndelsen af 90'erne, og det var i virkeligheden bare et rent skattesystem. Og egentlig var der bred tilslutning til det, og Delors stillede sig meget stærkt bag det i sin tid.
But Americans are opposed to a tax system where the emitters, for example, pay a fixed fee for each ton of CO2 they emit. Such a tax would never be approved by the US Congress. Bill Clinton and Al Gore were aware of this. Instead, they wanted to introduce a market system in which CO2 emitters could buy carbon credits for excess carbon emissions. If they stayed within the limits, they could sell their excess credits.
Hvis de ligefrem sender Al Gore selv, så må det være, fordi de har lyst til at få et resultat, som de bagefter vil prøve at få igennem. Så humøret steg adskillige grader, da vi fik at vide, at Al Gore kom.
After talking with our negotiators this morning, and after speaking on the telephone from here a short time ago with President Clinton, I am instructing our delegation right now to show increased negotiating flexibility.
At vi var ret optimistiske. Vi troede simpelthen ikke på, at han ville komme, uden at han bagefter ville være i stand til at få noget igennem.
After intense negotiations at Kyoto, the Americans got what they came for: a market-based system in which carbon emissions could be traded as carbon credits.
Vi var ikke i starten særlig glade ved ideen om de her salg af kvoter og den slags ting. Vi var bekymrede for, at det ikke ville komme til at fungere. Men det var så de muligheder, der viste sig.
In the US, the new market was met with enthusiasm.
I'm particularly pleased that the agreement strongly reflects the commitment of the United States to use the tools of the free market to tackle this problem. We got what we wanted, which is joint implementation, emissions trading, a market-oriented approach. It's a huge first step, and I did not dream when we started that we could get this far. We should be very, very proud of this. Thank you.
But the Kyoto Protocol was never put to a vote in the United States. In 2000, Al Gore lost the presidential election to George W. Bush, who backed out of the agreement.
The Kyoto Protocol was fatally flawed in fundamental ways.
Jeg mener, det er en katastrofe for indsatsen mod klimaforandringer og dermed de klimakatastrofer, der tegner sig i fremtiden.
Jeg var sådan set ikke meget forbavset over, at en republikansk præsident ikke ville noget som helst på klimaområdet. Jeg var mere skuffet over, at Al Gore og Clinton ikke leverede noget som helst.
Det er svært at bebrejde protokollen som sådan, at USA meldte sig ud. Det, man måske kunne bebrejde de resterende, det var, at de skulle have indrømmet og indset i 2001, at efter at USA forlod selskabet, så var der ikke noget at komme efter. Men der var simpelthen investeret så meget politisk prestige, og der var investeret så meget prestige hos de grønne organisationer, så man blev ved med at tale med samme begejstringsniveau om Kyoto-aftalen, selvom grundlaget var skredet.
Although the United States, the world's biggest emitter of carbons, pulled out, the EU still set up its own carbon credit system, known as the EU ETS, European Emission Trading System. The EU identified the 11,000 largest European emitters and set a limit for how much carbon they could emit. If they exceeded their limit, they would have to buy carbon credits. This is called cap and trade. Up to 2013, the EU handed out 10 billion carbon credits to member states in order to start the market. A carbon credit only exists as a computer file, and each credit has a unique serial number.
They were supposed to be traded. Everybody could trade it, not only industrials, obviously to bring liquidity to the market.
If I bought credit from a factory in Eastern Europe, that factory would go to his computer, he would log into his account, he would say, I'm delivering credits, 25,000 from my account to the buyer's account, and it would happen really. It could be done really in under 5 minutes.
The EU handed out the credits to the member states. Each member state established a registry that would distribute credits to the polluting companies. And now the trading could commence, just like the stock market.
I could buy it from somebody, for example, at 15 euros and 30 cents and sell it to somebody in London at 15 euros and 80 cents. I could make something like €0.5 per carbon credit by broking these to Western buyers.
But it was not only financial houses, brokers, and consultants who spotted an opportunity to earn fast money.
All the infrastructure is a computer and internet connection. That's in very plain words what is needed for this trade. So obviously, if you want to do a crime and you want to be fast and untraceable, carbon is one of the perfect candidates.
Elkær, på Ekstrabladet finder I ud af, at der bor en mand, der hedder Mirza Ghalib, herude i et socialt boligområde nord for København, der hedder Tingbjerg.
Ja.
Tingbjerg. Hvem er Mirza Ghalib?
Det er den indiske nationalskjald. Indiens svar på H.C. Andersen, og han er sådan set også samtidig med H.C. Andersen. Han dør i 1869, men han står altså registreret som kvotehandler på adressen her.
Op på anden sal?
Anden sal til venstre, ja. Og optræder som handler i det danske register, og har mulighed for at trade kvoter frem og tilbage.
Hvordan kunne det lade sig gøre?
Jamen, det kunne lade sig gøre, fordi at dem, der administrerer det danske register, de ikke tjekkede de oplysninger, som man brugte, når man registrerede sig i registeret. Så folk kunne skrive virkelig Anders Sand-adresser og navne. Der er en Agni Hysenaj Agni, som bor Ingebolden 26 i Hvidovre. Altså, det er der ikke. Den adresse findes ikke, og det navn findes ikke. Og så er der Mirza Ghalib, som man kan google, som jo altså bare er en digter, ikke? Altså, og som altså er meget død på det tidspunkt, hvor han er indregistreret i registret.
Due to the fast trade in carbon credits, they soon became very popular, and the number of registered traders rapidly increased.
So I set up a carbon registry account in Denmark, and I remember filling out the forms. And I don't like filling out forms, but these were very short.
Så det danske register var nemmere at blive optaget i end alle de andre?
Betydeligt nemmere. Altså i England så er det 3 måneder at blive registreret. I Danmark kunne det gøres på minutter online.
The Danish registry quickly became the largest in the world because anyone could be accepted as a carbon trader without any form of ID. The Danish authorities did not check traders' names or addresses. According to the Danish daily Ekstrabladet, most of the carbon traders were fraudsters.
Langt over 97% af de registrerede oplysninger har været falske.
Det var svindlere?
Ja.
Fraudsters found a loophole in the EU carbon credit system. They registered in the world's largest registry in Denmark, where no one asked who you are or where you came from.
I don't remember being asked for any identification. These days, we're always providing identification and power of attorneys and ownership documents of the companies I work for. It's under a system called KYC, Know Your Client. But back then, I only remember filling out the document and having the director of my company sign it, and then we sent it into Denmark, waited for the post to get our passwords back.
The fraudsters found a way to earn a lot of money, very fast. The scam is known as a VAT carousel. When a group of criminals make a VAT carousel, they usually do so in this way. A company in an EU member state sells carbon credits to a company in another EU country. When a sale is completed across an EU border, the invoice is minus VAT. The buyer of the credits now sells them to either shell companies involved in the scam or to companies who are unaware of the scam. The company charges VAT on the sale. Every time the carbon credits are traded, the price increases, as does the VAT. For the final link in the chain, the scammers now sell the credits to a new shell company, this time in a different EU country. Sales across borders are once again VAT exempt. Since the final company in the chain has paid VAT on the purchase of carbon credits, the VAT is refunded by the state. But the VAT, which the Treasury claims back from the very first company, is never paid because the companies and the VAT scammers have disappeared. The whole scam can be done in minutes, and the Treasury is left with the bill.
In this case, we saw organized crime groups manipulating the EU carbon trading emissions system and trying to exploit loopholes in our system in particular to carry out sophisticated online attacks of VAT fraud, culminating, we think, in losses of around 5 billion euros a year. So this was big business, organized crime, seeing the loophole, exploiting it very quickly, and earning a lot of illegal money.
Altså i modsætning til mobiltelefoner, eller fladskærme, eller bildæk, eller bilpærer, eller whatever man laver momsvindel med diamanter, så er CO2-kvoter geniale, fordi det er elektroniske certifikater. Du kan styre det fra din bærbare computer ved et cafébord, mens du sidder og drikker kaffe, og så kan du sælge de her certifikater gennem dine forskellige firmaer rundt omkring i forskellige lande, uden overhovedet at flytte dig ud over en grænse selv. Og så kan man generere den moms, som man så får udbetalt fra de forskellige landes statskasser, lynhurtigt ved at lade de her kvoter køre fra konto til konto til konto, selvom du sidder og styrer for en bærbar.
To start a VAT carousel, the scammers must have huge amounts of money at their disposal. They must be well organized and understand the market.
The person who goes in this kind, who tries to enters the VAT fraud idea, he would need generally millions, couple of millions, 4, 5, 10 at least, to have like a seed capital. Where the money came from to seed it is mainly the new wave of organized crime, which is described by Middle East organization, terrorist financing, Far East Asia, ex-Soviet Union, and bits and pieces in the southern Italy and Israel also.
We saw criminal groups trying to identify the weak spots in the European Union and then just exploiting it to the maximum to get what they can out of it. And by generating these huge volumes of illegal money. You know, this has a big effect, not least on the national governments themselves. That's 5 billion euros of government revenues that otherwise would be spent by governments to build hospitals and schools, or to reduce the debt right now to help governments secure the economic recovery.
When Europol and the EU became aware of the scam in May 2009, the member states were warned and VAT on the trading of carbon credits was removed. Meanwhile, carbon credit traders faced thorough checks, except in the world's largest registry in Denmark.
Man er ikke på det tidspunkt opmærksom på i Energistyrelsen, at de rent faktisk også skal tjekke bagud. Alle dem, der kommer ind i registret, dem er de nødt til at stoppe og pille ud og undersøge, er det her ægte adresser eller ej. Det gør de ikke.
Former Energy and Climate Minister Connie Hedegaard was informed about the VAT fraud in a confidential memo from the Danish tax authorities in August 2009.
Hun sidder med det register, som sådan set er den kæmpe store åbne port, som den her svindel, den kører igennem. Og hun har nøglen til at lukke den port. Og det kan hun gøre i august, det kan hun gøre i juli, det kan hun gøre tidligere. Man bliver opmærksom på svindelen i sommeren 2009, og Europol melder også ud der i forhold til politimyndighederne. Men det gør hun ikke. Faktisk så gør hun jo ikke noget, fordi det er jo først, da Lykke Friis træder til og overtager hendes ministerpost, at man sådan begynder at klappe porten i forhold til den svindel, der foregår, og efterse de konti, som er i registret.
1,256 carbon traders were registered in the world's largest carbon credit registry in Denmark. When the authorities finally started checking the identity of carbon traders, this dropped to just 33 legitimate traders within a few months. When the state prosecutor for financial crime in Denmark investigated the Danish registry, they found suspicious carbon credits, which they seized. But on November 3rd, 2010, shortly before midnight, they disappeared. The state prosecutor for financial crime had been hacked. It's still unclear who was behind the hacker attack, and the credits have never been recovered. The state prosecutor declined to be interviewed for this film. It took the EU 6 months to shut down the VAT carousels in the carbon trade. According to Europol, the scammers got away with 9 billion euros from the EU member states. But this was by no means the only type of fraud that was linked to carbon trading.
On the 18th of January 2011, my friend was on the tram going to work, and he told me he had to get off the tram because they blocked off the street right down there in front of this tram in the intersection. And he had to get off the tram, and he noticed that there were a lot of police cars and sniffer dogs going into this building. So what happened was that someone called into a bomb threat, and everyone was evacuated.
The building houses the National Czech Carbon Credit Registry.
Nobody knew that they were targeting the registry, and while they're out, they hack into the computers and transfer the emissions allowances.
And do you know what happened to the credits?
Well, they tracked them, and we know that they were delivered from Czech Republic to Estonia, and then to Poland, and then to Liechtenstein, and finally to Germany, where they were sold. If a registry can be hacked into by just calling in a bomb threat, and somebody can get access to millions and millions of dollars of carbon credit, you know, it's quite a serious thing.
The attack on the Czech registry is not unique. Hackers have hit several other European countries.
We had serious incidents around 2011 of hacking, which led to the thefts of some of the up to about 4 million, I think, carbon emission certificates, or credits rather. So, you know, we've seen them operating online. This is a new feature of organized crime as a whole, actually, how much more significant the internet has become as a primary facilitator for all organized crime activity. And of course, it's easier to steal a carbon credit. It's easier to perpetrate a fraud online than it is to steal money from a bank or steal a car. So, you know, the old form of criminality is being quickly overtaken by a new form, which is sustained by online, by what we regard to be a virtual underground economy.
Every single carbon credit has a unique serial number. Why on earth can't they find them?
Well, you have to ask the authorities in those countries on that. I'm not responsible for finding these. I'm just responsible at Europol in trying to identify the criminals that are behind this.
Europol estimates that the stolen credits are worth nearly 60 million euros. However, Europol has no mandate to arrest or prosecute offenders. It's up to national police and judiciary authorities.
How many credits is still gone missing?
Millions, between 3 and 5 millions.
The immense VAT fraud did not only involve transnational criminal networks. Big banks, such as Deutsche Bank, are accused of having laundered millions of euro for the VAT scammers. In December 2012, the German police raided Deutsche Bank's headquarters. Several of the bank's employees were imprisoned.
I think that a lot of companies might have delivered stolen credits without knowing it, and I think that they all believed that the registries were protecting them.
På et eller andet tidspunkt er de her kvoter blevet fra at være stjålet, gået over og blevet hvidvasket, om jeg så må sige, og begynder at figurere i legitime handler i systemet, fordi det er jo certifikater, som bare kører frem og tilbage mellem nogle brokers. Så er der en, der har stjålet dem, og han sælger dem videre, men ham, der sælger dem videre, selvom han jo i princippet er hæler og køber hælervarer, er han jo stadigvæk en legitim handler, som får de her kvoter ind. Og der har man jo det problem, at pludselig er de her stjålne kvoter jo røget over i den hvide del af handlen. Og man kan åbenbart ikke håndtere og finde ud af at sige, altså den der kvote der, den er altså stjålet, det bliver vi nødt til at føre tilbage.
A number of the stolen credits from the Czech registry had already been stolen once before. In 2010, 1.6 million carbon credits were stolen from the world's second largest cement company, Holcim. Romanian police managed to locate 600,000 credits, but Holcim is still missing 1 million credits, worth an estimated 15 million euros. Holcim demanded that the EU Commission, as the responsible authority, find and return the stolen carbon credits, but the EU Commission refused on the grounds that it was confidential information that only police and prosecutors could obtain.
Når jeg taler med folk, der har forstand på det her, så siger de, at sikkerheden har været så elendig. Og i dag er der faktisk kvoter, som stadigvæk ikke er fundet. Selvom de har unikke numre, vi har eksempler på, hvordan legitime handler pludselig omfatter kvoter, som faktisk er stjålet i et helt andet land. Vi har en sag, hvor et stort cementfirma simpelthen har stævnet jer. Her i kommissionen, de vil have 15 millioner euro retur, fordi de har mistet 1 million kvoter, og I kan stadigvæk ikke finde dem. Har du tænkt dig at give dem 15 millioner euro?
Nej, det har jeg nu ikke, men det må der jo være nogle jurister, der tager sig af. Det, der er det afgørende, det er, at det er stoppet nu. Altså, som jeg siger, det kan man jo godt få meget fest ud af at sige, det er vel nok for dårligt, at der foregår kriminalitet i cyberspace. Men det gør der altså. Det gør der på alle mulige finansielle transaktionssystemer. Der tror jeg da også lige, vi har haft en bankkrise og en finansiel krise, hvor der er nogle transaktioner, du ikke sådan har kunne sådan trace helt tilbage til udgangspunktet. Og det ser jeg ikke som en undskyldning, men det er bare, man skal jo vide, at den slags kriminalitet foregår der. Det er jo ret svært at lave et system, hvor du aldrig nogensinde kan lave kriminalitet imod det. Stadigvæk, så vil jeg jo ikke sidde og sige som om, så kan der aldrig ske noget igen. Det er der ingen, der kan, ligegyldigt hvad vi taler om, der kan handles i cyberspace, så kan der også svindles med det, ligesom der kan, når det ikke er cyberspace, men bare almindelig kriminalitet.
When they started trading carbon credits, they set up this system to log into a computer and deliver carbon credits within minutes. I've never seen anything like that. You know, it's like it just happened so quickly. So I think that it was a product of the rush and political support that a different kind of system of transferring carbon credits was put into place. I think they just made it too easy, too simple. And with so many different weaknesses, I think it was bound to happen that somebody would hack into somebody's account and steal credits.
And who invented it? That was the EU Commission.
Yeah, it was the EU Commission, as obviously people ignored, or probably, ignore is the best word, the fact that fraud, theft, or other things could occur.
So it falls back on the EU Commission?
Yes, definitely. Everything remotes to EU Commission and probably the European Union.
EU-kommissionen, som jo har det øverste ansvar for samtlige kvoter i hele EU, og det er jo 10 milliarder, de ved godt, hvor kvoterne er henne.
Ja.
Så hvorfor kan vi ikke finde de 4 millioner?
Det spørgsmål, det må du stille til EU-kommissionen.
Men de ved det godt?
Ja, de ved godt, hvor kvoterne er.
But the EU Commission will not disclose where the stolen credits are. They believe that fraud and theft are a matter for national governments and maintain that they are subject to a confidentiality clause. VAT carousels, computer hacking, theft, money laundering, and fraud with carbon credits have cost the European taxpayers an astronomical amount.
Including the VAT fraud, the money laundering, and the electronic theft, it's around 15 billion.
15 billion euros?
15 billion euros, and almost more than half, more than 60%, it's due to the VAT fraud.
Crime of the century, well, I think it's a good example of crime in the modern 21st century and how, in particular, the internet is used, for example, to exploit criminal opportunities.
Fraud and theft of electronic credits are far from the only problems facing this system. If you buy a carbon credit, you do so because you think that somewhere in the world, 1 less ton of carbon will be emitted. This guarantee is one of the cornerstones of the UN and the EU carbon credit system. In the spring of 2008, Denmark prepared for the biggest summit ever, the UN climate conference, COP15 in Copenhagen. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs decided that COP15 would be carbon neutral. This can only be done by buying a certain type of credits. These credits are issued by the UN and are called CDM, Clean Development Mechanism. The UN carbon credits are designed to promote the green transition in developing countries. it's a condition that the projects in which the rich countries buy credits are additional, meaning that they must lead to a reduction of carbon emissions that would not have occurred otherwise. The reduction may then be used in rich countries that emit too much carbon.
Hvis vi i stedet for at reducere i Europa, reducerer i Kina ved at investere større teknologi, så vil vi få en anden udvikling i udviklingslandene, som altså på den lange bane kan være med mindre CO2 og måske på den rigtig lange bane, uden de her store udledninger af drivhusgasser, i hvert fald på et mere acceptabelt niveau.
Dengang man fandt på at lave de her mekanismer, der var vi mange, inklusive mig selv, der tænkte, det er en super idé, at i-landene kan hjælpe u-landene med at lave de her projekter.
Jeg forstår godt, det virker lidt underligt på borgerne. Så kan man købe et projekt i et andet land. Nu har jeg næsten lige været i Tanzania. Det er et af verdens fattigste lande. De havde et ønske. Vil I ikke godt komme og investere i nogle af de ting, vi skal lave, kvæg det her, at de køber afladet, som nogen kalder, at de laver et projekt, så vi kan få noget renere energi, så vi ikke begynder at lave kulkraftværk, eller hvad det nu kan være, men få noget ren energi fra starten af. Det koster lidt mere. Det kan så finansieres via den her mekanisme, hvor vi altså betaler for det. Til gengæld så det energi, der bliver sparet, bliver ligesom gudskrevet vores. Det er ikke et dårligt princip, hvis man gerne vil have en global omstilling.
To make the summit in Copenhagen climate neutral, the Danish government bought credits in a CDM project here in Bangladesh. The project was to reduce carbon emissions in the production of bricks. Of the country's 6,000 brick factories, 8 factories have introduced a new technology that reduces emissions. The United Nations has named them smokeless factories. In 2010, Climate Commissioner Connie Hedegaard visited one of them.
I think that this is just one example of how big a difference relatively small money can do.
Du var i 10 ude at besøge hvad FN-systemet kalder en smokeless factory.
Okay.
Det har vi også været.
Okay.
Vi kunne næsten ikke trække vejret.
Jeg vil også sige, at det må være en tilsnigelse at kalde det smokeless.
The United Nations has approved 6,700 CDM projects throughout the developing world. 60% are located in China. But not all projects have proven to meet the UN standards, says a survey from the 92 Group, which consists of 22 Danish NGOs.
Hvad var resultatet af jeres undersøgelse, da I begyndte at kigge på det her?
Jamen det var netop, at de faktisk ikke, mange af dem ikke var additionelle. Og det vil sige, at de vil være gennemført i de lande om alle omstændigheder. Og så bliver det jo svindel og fup, når man får en kredit for sådan et projekt og tager hjem og kan få lov at svine tilsvarende på hjemmebanen. Når reduktionen ikke faktisk er en ny reduktion, så er det jo fup.
The survey shows that more than half of the projects didn't meet UN standards. Western countries and companies have bought UN credits for Chinese wind turbines, which were not even connected to the grid. And credits were sold for hydropower plants that had already been built.
Det er jo interessant, at Danmark, den tidligere regering, faktisk baserede hele klimapolitikken på, at man skulle købe så mange kvoter, man overhovedet kunne komme i tanke om, eller som man fik lov til. Og det betyder jo, at man sender penge ud af landet til nogle tvivlsomme projekter rundt omkring i verden, i stedet for at bruge de penge på den omstilling i Danmark, som kunne nedbringe brugen af fossile brændsler i Danmark og lave den omstilling, som er så vigtig.
Der vil sikkert altid kunne findes mange svindeksempler. Og det, der sker, det er jo, at man øger, hver gang vi får flere eksempler, så øger man kontrollen. Og til sidst ender vi op med, at det hele systemet bryder sammen i transaktionsomkostninger, fordi vores kontrolsystem er nu dyrere end hele øvelsen.
Jeg er helt sikker på, at du kan finde nogle eksempler, hvor man siger, er det her helt godt? Er det helt godt for miljø eller nogle sociale ting? Jeg vil så også sige, jeg har altså også været ude og se nogle, hvor man siger, hold da op. Jeg så som dansk minister et projekt i Bulgarien, et meget stort gødningsfabrik. Jeg så billederne af, hvordan det så ud før, og hvor forurenende det havde været, og folk kunne næsten ikke leve i det område. Og så jeg efter det her CDM-projekt, som Danmark blandt andet var med til at finansiere, der så jeg, hvordan hele området var blevet grønt, ryddet op, og nu havde man en af de 3 mindst forurenende gødningsfabrikker i Europa.
Den danske regering er ikke udpræget tilhænger af at fiksfakse kvoter frem og tilbage i markedet. Men jeg må også sige ærligt til dig, at når jeg kigger tilbage i dag på en lang række af de evalueringer, der er af projekter, så har det ikke fungeret godt nok. Så har der været for meget varm luft og for få konkrete resultater. Det tror jeg sådan set, vi er mange, der er enige om, og derfor er jeg heller ikke i tvivl om, at man for det første må kigge nærmere på, hvordan man definerer det her internationalt, og vi herhjemme i Danmark skal lave vores grønne omstilling herhjemme først og fremmest.
The Danish taxpayers paid 700,000 euros, making COP15 the first CO2-neutral summit. In total, the state of Denmark has purchased UN credits for 215 million euros. But it's not only governments and corporations that can purchase the credits. Individuals who would like to have a better green conscience can also buy them. But can they trust that they are getting the CO2 reduction they have paid for? In 2011, in Western Kenya, 900,000 water purification filters were distributed for free. Behind the distribution is one of the giants in the aid industry, a company called Vestergaard Fransen. The water filters are called Life Straw and were invented and distributed by Vestergaard Fransen.
When the Life Straw project arrived a couple of years ago, I was very interested because it promised to really improve the kind of health levels of local people by reducing the incidence of waterborne disease. And I thought this is a great idea.
The distribution of the filters is the first part of a larger plan conceived by Vestergaard Fransen. The plan is that when people are given a life straw, they no longer need to use firewood to boil their drinking water. According to Vestergaard Fransen, the life straw will help to reduce carbon emissions because the many trees felled in the area are not being replaced with new trees. This reduction can then be converted into carbon credits that Vestergaard Fransen can sell. The more carbon saved, the better a business it can become.
It is true that some people do boil water. As I understand it, surveys have shown that perhaps a fifth or a quarter of the population do so, but the vast majority don't.
According to Vestergaard Fransen, 36% of the families in Western Kenya boil their drinking water. But this was not enough for the life straw to be a success. Their success was entirely dependent on how many carbon credits the project could trigger. Therefore, Vestergaard Fransen conducted a feasibility study, asking people whether they would boil their water, if they had the time and if they could afford it. A total of 79% said that they would boil their drinking water if they had the time and if they had enough money. Far more than the percentage who actually boil their drinking water. The difference is called a suppressed demand.
Altså suppressed demand, det er jo en økonomisk teori. Og det, man prøver at sige her, det er, hvad ville folk have gjort, hvis de havde muligheden for det. Og det er jo så den matematiske formel, man tror på. Og dertil kan man kun sige, altså helt overordnet, at ja, det er sådan set jo ikke mere værd. Altså det er et økonomisk teoretisk begreb, og vi aner ikke, hvad der kommer ud af det.
Vestergaard Fransen's project is not part of the EU or the UN carbon credit system. This is a third type of carbon credit. They are called voluntary credits. They're aimed at companies and individuals who would like to make an extra effort to reduce their carbon emissions. And the voluntary credits promise buyers that they will lead to a reduction of carbon emissions. The buyers are then able to call themselves carbon or climate neutral.
du tror, at det her virker. Altså hvis vi tager det konkrete projekt, de har været nede at se på, ikke, så tror man, at de vil bruge de her vandrensningssystemer, og så vil de på den måde spare en udledning. Og det kan man jo beregne sig frem til. Altså, man kan jo ikke sige andet end, at det er jo bare en prognose.
Before Vestergaard Fransen could get their LifeStraw project converted into voluntary credits, it had to be approved. An organization called the Gold Standard approves and administers voluntary credits. The gold standard was established by WWF and 80 NGOs, including Greenpeace. The gold standard is approved by the UN. The gold standard accepted the suppressed demand in Vestergaard Fransen's LifeStraw project, and the project was approved. In order for the economic theory of suppressed demand to be accurate, the population must use the LifeStraw instead of boiling their drinking water.
We were given one. I mean, I have a household, a farm in this area, and so when the LifeStraw people came around, we got one. I don't know anybody who uses it. It's terribly fiddly, and it's terribly slow. It takes such a long time to fill a glass of water. To my mind, my experience, it's totally impractical. I know a lot of people around this area. Almost all of them have been given LifeStraws. They don't use them. They simply don't use them.
In a written response, Vestergaard Fransen say that they visit about 90% of the families who receive the LifeStraw once a year, and that they closely monitor up to 20,000 families' use of the filter. Since the project's inception, Vestergaard Fransens have conducted 3 visits to the many families. The company refuses, however, to provide reports on their visits until their evaluations are complete. During our visit in Western Kenya, no one we spoke to said that they use the filter very often.
You also got a LifeStraw, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the one. Yes. Do you use it?
For me, I don't use frequently.
You're a politician. You are meeting a lot of people around here, I guess.
Yes.
And if you look at your neighborhood here, is anyone using it?
Almost none.
Almost none. You know, they handed out almost 900,000 of these ones.
And I'm telling you, almost none is being used. Even my neighbor here was given, but I don't see him using it. That is how it is.
Yeah.
We are visiting on average in a week about 15 to 18 families.
And they all have this given.
And every household has this, but who is using it? Very few people are using it. In fact, for the last 2 years that I've been here, I've only had one person saying that they're using it.
Vestergaard Fransen's project in Kenya is legal and far from the only project based on suppressed demand theory. The Gold Standard have approved a total of 119 projects. Almost half of them are based on suppressed demand, a theoretical calculation based on a suppressed need.
I gamle dage havde man troet på præstens velsignelse. I dag skal jeg have en lang matematisk formel, og den bliver meget lang, den her. Så må det jo være rigtigt.
After 3 independent studies, the Gold Standard states they too found that 92% use LifeStraw. However, the Gold Standard does not want to hand over the studies, and the Gold Standard could not find time for an interview. If the Gold Standard over the next 8 years approved that LifeStraw is used by 92% of the population in Western Kenya, Vestergaard Fransen can, given the current price in carbon credits, look forward to a total turnover of between 50 and 67 million euros. Vestergaard Fransen claims, however, that declining prices on carbon credits also means a drop in revenue. Therefore, the company does not expect to profit on the project.
the principal things of the Light Straw project is that, one, cutting down, reducing carbon emissions significantly in this area, and two, reducing waterborne diseases. Has this been done?
I would say quite categorically no. It has not reduced significantly carbon emissions.
Vestergaard Franzen declined to be interviewed for this film. The largest energy company in Denmark is Dong Energy, a company 80% owned by the Danish state. In total, Dong Energy's 10 largest power plants emit 11 million tons of carbon annually. This corresponds to twice the emissions from Danish cars and makes Dong Energy Denmark's largest emitter of carbon.
Det er korrekt, at vi udleder en del CO2. Det gør vi i kraft af vores kulproduktion på vores kraftværker.
In the period between 2008 and 2012, Dong Energy emitted 7 million more tons of carbon than they had credits. Therefore, Dong Energy had to buy 7 million carbon credits to comply with the rules. When the EU started to distribute the credits in 2008, they were worth 30 euros each. In the spring of 2013, an EU credit was worth 3 euros, a decrease of 90%. A UN credit was worth 26 euros. By April 2013, they are being traded for less than 0.26 cents. At the same time, the price of coal plummeted.
Det er en udfordring. Altså, det er faktisk at sige, at for vores enkelte kulkraftværk er en lav kulpris selvfølgelig på den korte bane en god idé. Men for Dong Energy samlet set og for vores strategi, der er den lave kulpris en udfordring. Først og fremmest fordi den udkonkurrerer naturgasdrevne kraftværker, og de har faktisk den fordel, at de udleder under halvdelen af den CO2, som et tilsvarende kulkraftværk udleder.
Så kulene er kommet for at blive?
Det må man antage, og der er meget af det.
Det, der er problemet i dag, det er, at fordi kvoteprisen er så lav, så ser man, at de europæiske elselskaber investerer i kulfyrede værker i stedet for den grønne omstilling. Og man ser, at de eksisterende kraftværker bliver fortsat fyres med kul, fordi det er det billigste brændsel.
De kraftværker, der i dag er på tegnebrættet eller under opførelse, det er kulfyrede kraftværker, og ikke gasfyrede kraftværker, eller vind, eller sol, eller hvad det nu ellers kunne være.
Hvorfor er de det? Hvorfor er det?
Ja, det er fordi, det er billigst.
Så det er ikke forkert at sige, at det aldrig har været billigere at forurene, det er nu, hvis vi holder os inden for det.
Hvis vi ser i forhold til kvotesystemet, så er det nok korrekt, ja. Og vi har meget klart sagt, meget tidligt, for øvrigt sammen med flere andre energiselskaber, andre organisationer i Europa, som er optaget af den grønne omstilling, at det er simpelthen ikke sundt for den grønne omstilling, at kvoteprisen er så lav, som den er.
Er det kollapset?
Det er nok for meget at sige, men det er i hvert fald nødlidende.
Det europæiske kvotemarked er de facto kollapset. Og det er det, fordi prisen er så langt nede, så det betyder ingenting for CO2-udslippet, om den bevæger sig lidt op eller ned. Den er simpelthen alt for langt under det niveau, hvor den har en betydning. Det er det samme som at sige, at den er kollapset.
The EU and the UN credit system are in trouble. This is not only due to the low price of coal. The global economic crisis has led to a sharp decline in industrial production and thus in carbon emissions. Therefore, there is no need for the many carbon credits on the market.
Så det er systemet har nogle fejl, der gør, at det ikke fungerer. Man har simpelthen sørget for, at der er for mange kvoter i spil.
Since 2005, the EU has issued 10 billion carbon credits. And the EU Commission will continue to issue credits to European companies.
Jeg tror bare, at de fleste kan se, at der er for mange kvoter i omløb, Og så er det jo ikke ret klogt at blive ved med at sende stadig flere kvoter ud i omløb. Men det er jo sådan noget, vi skal være enige med medlemsstaterne om, før det kan blive til egentlig lovgivning.
In April 2013, the EU Commission tried to pass a new bill that would ensure that fewer carbon credits would be issued in the future. The attempt was to artificially raise the price of the credits. However, a majority in the European Parliament rejected the bill. In 1997, the UN ratified the Kyoto Protocol.
Decided.
The United States, with then Vice President Al Gore in the lead, rejected the EU's proposal for a tax on carbon. The result was a market-based system where carbon could be traded on the free market. In 2007, Al Gore received the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts against global warming. Today, carbon emissions are higher than ever.
We've spoken about it, there's been lots of rhetoric around climate change, but the reality is that we have abjectly failed to get any control on our emissions.
Den skepsis, som vi dengang havde i forhold til det system, har jo vist sig helt at holde stik.
Den bidrager overhovedet ikke til klimabeskyttelsen, men den giver en række politikere og andre en mulighed for at sige, at nu har de gjort noget. Og jeg hører til dem, der mener, at det er faktisk bedre at være tvunget til at indrømme, at man ikke har gjort noget, end at man har gjort noget, som ikke har nogen virkning, men som giver en mulighed for at fremtræde, som om man har opnået noget.
No one is prepared to acknowledge the scale of the problem, and when we do acknowledge the scale, we say it's not our fault. Someone else must act first. And what's happening? The emissions go up every single year.
Det, der jo er det mistrøstige, er sådan set, at verden er så afhængig af de her forskellige energiformer, at der heller ikke er nogen vilje til at lave om på det.
There's now a lot of carbon trading. Many billions, possibly even hundreds of billions of pounds worth of carbon is getting traded. That has nothing to do directly with climate change. Indirectly, I think it makes things worse. So I would say carbon trading, again, is worse than doing nothing.
Det farligste er jo i virkeligheden at fortsætte med nogle policies, der ikke leverer noget. Fordi det er først den dag, at du accepterer, at de ikke leverer noget, at du har mulighed for at lave noget nyt.
Og det hjælper ikke klodens klima, det her?
Overhovedet ikke.